Yeah.
Well, they reference, they'll always send you to, there's this, and we have the book now, but there's like this 600-page book on signals design and stuff that's like, I guess apparently, grad level courses in EE, that's what you read. And so any question you ask in new radio, they just like point you to that book and say like, go buy that, and then come back and ask. But yeah, it's really neat stuff. Like we talked about, what we found with things like FHSS is that by doing sampling and a wide range capture, we would be able to see those ranges. Something else that we found, and we'll actually talk about this again in a minute, is looking up things like FCC documentation. A lot of times those docs will have all the detail about how these radios work. They'll talk about the hop sequence. In a lot of cases, they'll even put the documentation there. Also see that in patents. You'll see it in IC searches. We also found that like finding all the resumes for all the engineering teams for a company would tell us a lot about, like if you look at their background, it's like, okay, he's got a lot of background in OFDM design. And this guy did, his PhD thesis about, 4G FSK. We probably know what kind of modulation he did when that company hired him, right? So that helps us a lot in looking at this stuff. Just a random example. This is a digi radio. It's a serial radio that is in use in a number of places for essentially giving you the ability to take a serial port, send it over wireless, really dumb, stupid radio. And if you pull the FCC ID on that, it will tell you all the hop sequences, the channel spacing, the device does lots of other stuff about it. It tells you the modulation, the channels, the dwell time, and actually the modulation type that they use. The other thing that...
Right, so what we're showing here, after you pop out the shielding, you can start tracing and looking up what the different chips are doing. Right, so this particular chip is the chip that handles basically radio for this guy. We looked at some others that had actually highly detailed data sheets that were available that'll tell you explicitly what its options are. Like it supports this modulation in this one and these like 5 options for those. So it drastically limits down the number of things you've kind of got to brute force through to do this. And I probably, like real EEs probably look at this stuff like as, they'd like put their finger up and they're like, oh, that's GFSK, right? Well, we can't really do that. So we cheat, right? And so like look up the documentation. It makes it really easy.
Yeah, the guy that, somebody told me, the guy that's done all the Bluetooth work with breaking Bluetooth, that he can actually listen to Bluetooth over audio and like hear it and go, oh, I know what that is. Yeah.
Oh, they're transferring an image.
We're not nearly that smart. No. So for us though, these data sheets, the IC data sheets, they're meant for people that buy this chip. And they'll tell you, essentially the reference spec for this chip for how to write, these voltages do these things on it. So that narrows down the number of things that we need to figure out on our own very quickly. And we found that to be extremely helpful. Here's just an example of actually taking a wideband sample that was over a large range frequency hopping.
Yeah. So the green line at the top is that's the highest point that it's seen on that channel, right? So each one of those spikes is a different channel within that range, and it's hopping between them. The blue line is what actually is currently being looked at, and so the top line is that it's showing the entire range and what's occurring. The bottom line, or the bottom section, is showing we're looking at this individual channel right here, and then we're doing demodulation based on all the stuff that we looked up from data sheets, and we're able to get that out. And then all those things actually correspond to ones and zeros in one way or another. There'll be decoding and encoding that might need to take place after this, but basically, yeah, that's ones and zeros that you're watching right there. Just as if, and some of you hardware guys recognize things like that from logic analyzers and things that are happening at that level. It's same stuff, just over radio with different types of modulation.
Yeah, and that's just an example of an individual channel and what in this case FSK might look like. But yeah, the differences in those waves, that's how you get to zeros and ones. So that if it's just clear text and that's there's nothing else in play, the mojo here is just getting to the point of figuring out how they got to zeros and ones and building that in software on your end to get to it. So yeah, same process that people have done with Bluetooth and GSM. The suck part about proprietary protocols is you have to do this every time. You've got to go through that process with each radio.
So every time you look at a new radio, you got to go through the same process. And we've gotten better at it in that what we've done in 2 weeks, what took us 6 months before. But but it's still a big process.
Yeah, and there's lots of other things. You've got to identify the encoding, the symbol rate, the endingness. Like I say, a lot of that will come out of the biggest thing we find is using the ICs and the FCC data and stuff like that helps us a lot to get the right direction. Yeah, and basically at that point you just spend a lot of time brute forcing the signal until something comes out that looks accurate. And we're way out of time. We had an hour 15 at Black Hat, so I'm terribly sorry. Yeah, the only other thing, actually one thing I will say is the other thing that we find is when we get under the hood on a lot of these radios, they have something like an SSID for a wireless device, like same kind of thing. There's still got a network ID. What we've found in a lot of cases is there might also be some undocumented things that will do things like a promiscuous mode, same thing as a wireless device. And also maybe a channel that will allow you to interact with all other channels. And this would be, that would apply to meters or these other kind of radios. So when you get physically a hold of one, sometimes you don't even have to break the protocol. If you use that card and maybe look for some things that aren't on by default, it'll help you out a lot.
So we're going to go, what room are we going to be in after this?
Capri 112.
Capri 112. So you have questions, come see us there. But we got to get off the stage. So
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's right. Thanks.